Always look into the camera.
Yeah.
That's all I know.
Okay.
Hello everyone. I welcome you to the Zentrum für Antisemitismusforschung, the Center for Research on Anti-Semitism. And you might have mentioned that I have invited colleagues and also graduate students to attend the seminars to get in touch with you and have a discussion. I do not know who or even if anyone shows up because we are in the middle of our semester period. So there are no courses at the moment, and many colleagues are busy writing papers, publishing books. Oh, who's coming?
Not to forget.
So it might be that I will be alone with you, but I didn't know. Let's wait and be surprised if anyone shows up.
But in any case, of course, we can consider ourselves extremely lucky because with Dr. Markus Funck, we are not here with anybody, to say the very least. To briefly point out, he's in fact the coordinator of the MA program, degree program here on interdisciplinary research on anti-Semitism. Which has been now, has it been third year? The third year. So interdisciplinary program with students from all Berlin universities who are attending it and more successful and of course recognized in of itself. Dr. Funck has been at this center since 2011. He also, as you probably also noted, given his superb English, has been a DAAD visiting professor. DAAD is the German Academic Exchange Service, which, by the way, also, of course, is one of the co-funders of this trip, mind you, right? In fact, from 2006 to 2010, he was such a professor at York University, which, of course, I see the nods, of course, is in Canada, of course, right? So he also, among many other things, was active at the topography of terror, also in fact as a wissenschaftlicher Mitarbeiter there. That of course goes way back to the mid-1990s when in fact we were both in Berlin at that time. Okay, so he's working among others on Ignaz Bubis, but also on reconceptualizing histories of anti-liberalism in Germany, and in recent months has also been active not just in the scholarly, but also in fact in a journalistic front, so to speak, especially with writing analysis of, in fact, the AfD, the Alternative for Germany, of course, and we heard quite a bit about this last night, among others as well, when we were in Wolfsburg and talking with CDU and VVN leaders and politicians, of course, here as well. So, without further ado, much more, of course, can be said, but I'm very thankful to Dr. Funck, right, for having us here this evening, and so let's continue on this program.
Thank you very much. And just as a side note, the AfD research thing is taking up speed due to the election campaign that will start in the probably late spring, early summer in Germany. So what we are so we just received a grant to monitor the AfD campaign in regard of anti-Semitism and racism. We will inform you about what we will find out on the basis as well as on the top of the party. So what I would like to do before you will start to present your work here is that I briefly introduce you to the Center for Research on Anti-Semitism, its history, and what we're doing for a living in these rooms. There are kind of three fields where the center is active. One is teaching. You just mentioned our graduate program in interdisciplinary research on anti-Semitism, and certainly research. but also public outreach. And so I will speak a bit about all three parts of our work. Interestingly, the center that was found in 1982 was initially it was planned that the center should become a sort of a Holocaust studies center. But at that time, the responsible, although there was some public pressure to start a center like that, but the responsible kind of politicians, university people, etc., thought that that field would be too narrow for a research center in its own right. So this idea died, but from that, another initiative started to look at the history, predominantly the history of anti-Semitism in the 19th and 20th century, with a focus on Germany. And because of the research interests of the former directors of the center, it actually became a sort of a Holocaust research center, although it didn't bear the name of it. So this was actually the first kind of research focus the center had. Kind of writing, analyzing, interpreting the history and the prehistory of the Holocaust. And also they did quite a lot of work in exile studies, which is somehow related to the first field. In recent years, the focus has broadened quite significantly. It started actually already 15 years ago or so, that other forms of racism, like homophobia, how do you say it? Antiziganismus. Do you say anti-Ziganism? Can you say that?
Anti-gypsy, quote-unquote, sentiment, which of course is a highly problematic term in of itself.
So other forms of discrimination and exclusion were also became part of the research here. And since, let's say, a decade or so, certainly anti-Muslim racism has become a major field here. Also, and this was quite controversial, it still is, also certainly how it relates to anti-Semitism historically, but also in the present. As you can see, the fields of research have become very diverse. Some critics would say that the center here has lost its focus. We would say no, that we actually have broadened the perspective and look at interconnections, interrelations of different expressions of racism, and by comparison, we do not look only on similarities but also on differences. So what makes anti-Semitism unique in comparison to other forms of racism? And so this is very briefly the history of the center, which is actually, I should mention that since 2011, directed by a woman, Stefanie Schüler-Springorum, who is an expert, and this is also kind of a shift in perspective, who is an expert actually in Jewish history, that has also become a part of our focus and work. So that kind of the Jewish perspective on anti-Semitism and the Holocaust. Well, yes, our teaching was mentioned. We have introduced this master's program, which looks at predominant anti-Semitism in a historical perspective, but also related to the present. And we hope, we're still waiting for the first students to finish their studies. So we hope being able to educate, on the one hand, young scholars who will stay in the field and do some more research, go for a PhD or so, but also people who would kind of inform public or private institutions in kind of prevention work in a very broad sense. So governmental institutions, but also NGOs, etc. And this leads me to the third field of our of what we are doing. This what I mentioned as public outreach. We are in very close contact to quite a number of public institutions, public and non-public institutions, who are working in that field as monitors, setting up prevention programs, or who are actually involved in political decision making. So just to give you a few examples, the German Parliament, the Bundestag, now for the second time, has set up a so-called expert commission, an Expertenkommission, looking at anti-Semitism and the ways how to prevent it in present-day Germany. And the center here is involved with two colleagues who are sitting in that committee that advises the Ministry for the Interior. Then certainly we are also involved in international organizations. So some of them are more research related, others are more into humanitarian, work. And finally, we also, and sometimes this is really a burden or becomes a drag. Certainly also the media is, when there are anti-Semitic incidents or scandals, and we have quite a lot of them, the media is very eager to get some advice or expert view on things. And they always think when they call us that we know everything and could clarify, is that anti-Semitic or is that not anti-Semitic? So they don't have a clue about how research actually is working. So that it's interesting, and I think it's important that we try to inform the public, but there are also kind of these obstacles and misunderstandings between the broader public and research institutions. I've brought some stuff with me. So there's this leaflet. It's all in German, so you can train your language skills. So these are folders or leaflets about our study program that gives you some insight what we're actually teaching our students. Then I brought an annual report. You already have one, don't you? It's almost outdated because the actual one is in the making and will be published this summer. So this covers the years from 2012 to 2014. If you're interested, you can keep it.
But the yearbook, right, is actually, this is the 25th already, has a very important scholars and great contributions it has had throughout the year. Of course it is in German, but nonetheless, right, some of you read it, and of course also with footnotes and others that still can point to helpful literature as well as primary sources here as well. So I can pass this around by line.
It is in German predominantly, but
you're right.
We sometimes have English articles, English language articles in there. Have you published in the yearbook?
You invited me, so I was like, yes, I've been following along.
Right. So I agree. No, it's really it's our annual yearbook that is published. the end of the year. So this is the latest one, and I think well, it is, at least in the German language, in the German speaking area, this is a unique publication. So the only publication that is dedicated to research on anti-Semitism. I think that's it so far from my side. If you have any question you would like to ask about the center here, or anything else that comes to your mind, feel free.
And of course, specifically, at least I have been also pushing and nudging towards the MA program. So obviously, for many of you, would require to hone your German skills a little bit more, because almost all of the classes, of course, are offered in German at this point. But nonetheless, do consider, keep this in mind. And there's also, as the DAAD again assured me in my many conversations of late with them, funding for American students doing studies at the MA level in Germany. So questions, concerns, feedback, clarifications, right?
How many students do you have in the bachelor's program?
Oh, okay. So this is a small program. We have about 20 to 25 a year. Yeah. But well, it needs to be small. I think, because well I don't know if you have experienced German universities. In other fields of study, it can happen that you are sitting in seminars with 60, 80 students or so, and you can't do serious work in such large groups, and that's why we limited it to 25 is the maximum we take a year in order to ensure that we can, that we can work properly. And also one also have to think about job options, and it is not. In Germany, although I think there are lots of programs and lots of initiatives going on, it's very difficult to get into permanent jobs in that field. So I would say it would be irresponsible to let's say have 100 students a year or so.
Other questions, comments, feedback, clarifications? Or are we all ready and eager to get going, right? Maybe still picking somebody up, maybe not, but that is okay, of course. We're amply, of course, equipped to get started. Okay, right, with this in mind, Marcus, was things to wonder? Yeah? Okay, perfect. Let's get started. And I would simply kind of suggest, right, to go around the room. And since I don't want to necessarily go by who's closest to me, let's actually start on the other side with Virgie, if you don't mind. Okay. Start out, of course, with your name and the project, and then the ideas, of course, as I had already conveyed to you, as we have done in similar settings. Of course, get some feedback from yet another expert in the field, overlapping with, of course, some of your project, and of course not overlapping at all, but nonetheless, yes.
May I ask a question? Because there's one point I forgot to talk about briefly.
Of course, please.
But I would like to connect that with a question. So I'm a historian, a trained historian, but over the years I became some sort of multifunctional. But this is the center here is an interdisciplinary center. So we have sociologists, colleagues from literature, and so on and so on.